joining me for a conversation on lust, something I've wanted to discuss for a long time, covering all aspects of what lust actually includes in our generation, my generation. I have Dr. Debra. I also have Dr. Bret Weinstein, and I have Rav Arora, a journalist as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. And I know we've talked a little about what this does to men, to women. I do want to play sort of devil's advocate and throw out some maybe more so crazy ideas that society and some parts of society talk about, but maybe isn't overly spoken of. So I'm sure we can all agree that the issue is getting bad. It's getting worse. I'm going to bring up OnlyFans for an example. We sort of took something now. It seems like it's the print copy where a girl goes on Instagram, a guy goes on Instagram, they post provocative photos, they do some provocative video on TikTok, and then you stumble onto those, and then you go to their OnlyFans, which is easily accessible in their link in their bio, and then you can subscribe for free. You can see some stuff, and then you can buy something for maybe $100. Um, why not just completely ban OnlyFans? Because all it is a, a lust site, or ban Pornhub. Why, if the issue is this bad, why wouldn't we just say, you know what, in Canada, we're going to completely ban Pornhub as a website or OnlyFans? And I'm curious on anybody's thoughts here, if you care to answer.
All right, I'd be willing to start. The problem with the ban the bad stuff approach is the drawing the line issue. And I would argue that actually it's not hard to draw the line conceptually between porn and erotica. The line was the motivation to do it monetary?
Right.
But the problem is, in practice, you don't know if somebody writes an erotic novel because they're motivated to say something sexual and they happen to make money off it or expect to. Was that porn? You can't say. So if you decide to do this at the level of banning stuff, you're going to violate free expression of ideas and you're going to get rid of truly important stuff like erotica. So that isn't the answer. But recognizing that something like OnlyFans is it's a con. A small number of people get tremendously wealthy on this site, which lures a large number of people to put content there at a loss, not only a loss financially, but a loss to their long-term well-being, because it's a one-way road. So the key is not to ban it, but to get people to recognize that both as producers and consumers, they should shun it.
Shun it. Interesting, but not ban it. I get what you're saying, though,
No,
about the freedom of expression. I mean, you walk a very, very fine line, because then you could even look at, like, one funny thing that came to my mind was the American Eagle, Sydney Sweeney has great genes ad, and I mean, like, I'm assuming you put that in the bucket of, like, erotica. I've not heard that term before, first time hearing that term, but I'm assuming it's something in that, or being mischievous, whatever it may be, and so you sort of toe that line. But I mean, I don't know, Debra, like, there does seem, Bret, and I know you're trying to play both sides here, Debra, there does seem like there's got to be a line between, like, I mean, OnlyFans is literally just men and women posting naked pictures and getting people to pay for it. And I mean, but we've had this for a long time. We've had strip clubs for a long time. Do we ban strip clubs? I hate to say this, but in a communist society, like, if they knew that it was harming their future productivity as a country, they would just completely eradicate it. Like, in some countries, they don't have TikTok because they just don't think it's healthy for the younger generation, or they do, but only educational stuff. Like, there are certain things that eventually, do you just have a country that takes a stand on this, and the country then says that, I don't care, there's clear evidence that this is impacting you in a very negative way. And unfortunately, we're going to have it where it's way too late, where our generation is going to be swimming in the trenches, and I don't think care to find a partner for the rest of their life, which is unfortunate. Is there a line that you just say, you know what, leave the country? We're banning this. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Debra, I know that's a harsh take and I'm being a little provocative, but what's your take on that?
Well, I wanna say I'm really sympathetic for your generation for sure, because I do think you guys and gals have had to deal with some unprecedented issues that generations prior did not have to deal with, in that you grew up with a smartphone basically in your hands from birth and access to the internet, and without proper safeguards in place. So in terms of things like OnlyFans or strip clubs or just so-called sex work, I don't like that term because I think it really glosses over what it entails, which is
Yeah.
women selling their bodies for money to have sex with people whom they don't know. And it's not a good choice. It's not, as though it's being sold to young women as entrepreneurial and very intelligent. And why would you're going to be sexualized by society anyway, so why would you monetize that? But it's not good for women. It's not good for their mental health. Usually many of the women in this industry, in the sex industry, have traumatic histories. So in terms of what to do about it, in terms of protecting children, I do personally think more needs to be done in terms of, say, keeping this content away from children. I used to be very much in favor of allowing parents to be the ones to make the decisions about,
Ah,
how, if a child gets access. But at the same time, I do think it's so difficult nowadays for parents to be aware of what their kids are watching. At the same time, I understand why this makes many Canadians uncomfortable, because do you want the government being aware of what you're looking at on the internet? Where do we draw the line in terms of that? But the thing is, prostitution is the world's oldest profession, as we all know. So
right,
even if we
right.
did ban these forms, these people are going to find other ways of selling it and selling their
Now,
nudes or
Deborah,
what
you
have
said
you.
something interesting. Like, you used to think that it should be up to the parents. And I'm going to be so honest with you. Rav, I don't know. I actually kind of felt that way too. Like, I was very much, like the conservative value, like, oh no, it's up to the parents and the parents got to deal with it and the government shouldn't get involved in that. Now I kind of feel like I sound like maybe like a socialist or a communist by saying that the Canadian government should just like completely eradicate this. Rav, am I crazy for saying that? I mean, at what point do the negative benefits of this, like how long did it take? I don't know, I wasn't alive, but how long did it take for cigarettes to become not illegal, but almost like shunned in society? Bret, you're saying almost we take the same approach, but Rav, just sort of your take on this. I don't know, seems like a pretty easy solution. Ban it, make it illegal to post. If you're found posting it, we'll sue you. I don't know. For like Rav, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've talked a lot here today about all the concerns with pornography and sexualized content and all that, and so we're all in agreement there. In terms of policy, I would echo what Bret said and give an interesting example actually of some of the dangers around this. Like what are the parameters between erotica versus pornography? There was this interesting series called The Idol by the Canadian pop artist The Weeknd, and it was released a couple years ago. And that show I thought was actually really artistically brilliant in showing this young female character that had a lot of mental health issues and had these different sexual twisted fantasies, and then this male protagonist that The Weeknd played that was very manipulative, very sexually aggressive, and there was this major freak out afterwards that the show was promoting sexual aggression, but the show was actually depicting a very disturbed young woman and a disturbed young man that were engaging in these very toxic behaviors. But there were lots of people, and actually more coming from left-wing activists, who were saying, "Oh, this program, this fictional TV show, is promoting things that are dangerous for women." But yet, I think that was an artistic expression. So I think we have to be very careful about,
Rav, just
things like video games, music, TV, etc.
right. I mean, we certainly have to be careful about what we watch. What actually boils my blood is, look, I'm an older guy. I'm over the age of 19. You know, I should be able to choose what I want to do. And if I want to watch porn all day, then, if that's my choice, that's my choice. I hope I don't get clipped saying that, because I don't. But one thing that is really boiling my blood is that we have these video games. Even like, I remember like League of Legends now, I'm thinking back, and my mom didn't let me play it because, their little women were so skimpy dressed. And I just wanted to play the game, but I didn't understand why, and it pissed me off. But I'm like looking at these images. I remember how it makes me feel as a young boy. That stuff boils my blood. But now you even got like Netflix, for example. What are these shows, the ultimatum, where you bring on like your wife or your fiance, and then you go on and she goes and meets with her ex to see if it's going to work, or Love Island, or like Rav, are a lot of people are watching these shows. Is this erotica or is this porn? My view, it's porn. But what is yours?
Well, yeah, that's where this gets really challenging. And the example that I gave and the examples that you're giving, I mean, there's been all these debates over the years about like rap music, video games, like what's promoting a certain behavior versus actually artistically, meaningfully expressing that behavior. So I would be very cautious, because I do believe in artistic freedom and artists to be able to depict, like some of my favorite music artists depict a lot of deeply disturbing, violent, mentally challenging content that I think is really powerful to express some of that. Obviously, there can be an issue with young people taking certain things and actually using that to mirror their own lifestyle. But
Or do you
I
ban
generally
statues in
I lean more
Rome?
on the free speech side of things.
Yeah, like no, and actually, it's funny you bring that up because now I'm thinking, like I remember going to I remember going to Rome, and like they've got paintings of naked men and women touching hands and this and that. It's like, okay, like what do you do with that then too? But I don't know. That seems like it was in some capacity something different, but maybe I just am telling myself that. Anyways, we'll be right back. We got to jump to commercial, but we'll be right back to finish this off.
I'ma rule the world, yeah.
Joining me again is Dr. Debra So, Dr. Bret Weinstein, and Rav Arora. Debra, we mentioned strip clubs. I want to tell you something really disturbing. Not to get too personal, but there are a few situations that I'm aware of in which guys are in relationships and they want to go to strip club and hey, no problem. Their girlfriends are honestly okay with it. Now, I want to believe that they don't fully understand, based on the stories that I've heard about a strip club through people that I know, like actually what happens in a strip club. Debra, talk to me about that. Strip clubs have been around, I don't even know how long, hundreds of years, I want to say, in their own, they've molded, but they've been around for a long time. Debra, just touch on that a little bit. And is it disturbing to you? Is it sickening? Does it show you a lot that girlfriends are now allowing their men to do it because they might just go do it anyways? Like,
Well, I'm a straight woman, but I will say I can understand why men enjoy this form of entertainment because, of course, if you are into women, you'd love to see them naked and flirting with you and interacting with you and potentially, giving you some idea that they might want to sleep with you. But the thing nowadays, what I find is I'd be curious to know with those young women that you are speaking of, if they're aware, they might actually be aware of what goes on at a strip club and still feel okay with it because that's what the culture is telling them. That if you want to be an enlightened young woman, a so-called sex positive woman, you should be okay with this, and it's jealous and controlling for you to not be okay with it. I'm not sure that most people are aware if they've never been to a strip club, but more than 40% of strippers report selling sex in the club they work in. So it's not that they're just dancing nude, they might actually be selling their bodies as well. And so that's another piece of it, because when you look at the larger, say, dating recession and young men and women's disinterest in each other, if you have these other alternatives in which men and women can go down to get their sexual needs met, then they have less of an incentive to want to connect with one another. So I would say for young men, especially who are struggling financially or who may not have as much luck in terms of romantic prospects, if you're spending your money on these women who do not care about you, who are only there for a transaction, you're taking money away from women who could actually be in a relationship with you, who want to be there, who will be sleeping with you and wanting to get to know you and be in love with you. That's a very different experience. And also it can potentially hinder your ability to communicate and have social skills and be successful with women because you're used to getting exactly what you want because it's a paid transaction.
yeah, I think that's why we have a lot more creepy men nowadays. Anyways, Bret, I know you have something you would like to add to this just off camera when we were chatting. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, I know I'm a 57-year-old guy. I'm a Gen X. I was born in 1969. This system was already broken for my generation. This was not well worked out in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but it's way more broken now. And it's much harder to get to a reasonable place if you're trying to figure out what to do with your sex and romance life. But I think if I could give the Gen Zs one thing, it would be an ability to look into the life that you are turning down by opting into the mode that has been handed you.
Mm.
And I think what would shock them is, although they can access whatever kind of content they want now, and they can organize whatever kind of relationship they want now, they're completely free in one sense. And you would think that would create a tremendous amount of sexual satisfaction. And it has done exactly the inverse.
Yeah.
Sex is supposed to be something that actually takes effort to get. Women are supposed to be the guardians of sex because they have a lot more to lose in a sexual interaction. A woman who gets pregnant with a guy who's not investing is going to end up raising a child alone That's a huge investment. It also reduces her value on the mating and dating market. So women have traditionally guarded sexuality, which made it hard to attain, which also meant that it implied something important if you got to a stage where a woman was willing to have sex with you as a man. So anyway, the thing I would like Gen Zs to understand is that how much sex and how much variety you're getting is one contributor to that equation, but it's not the dominant one. And the amount of sexual satisfaction that Gen Z is experiencing just empirically is way lower than prior generations that were paradoxically less free.
Isn't that
So
crazy? Like actually to think about that, like we've got it so easily in front of us now. And I mean, even I would associate this too as like just a higher divorce rates. Not that I can say that this is directly correlated, like an addiction of lust of some kind is, but I would imagine that a lot of individuals struggle with this, men and women. Rav, we've got 5 minutes here. I just want to sort of bring some heart to the issue. So we talked about like these fashion styles. We've got like The Ultimatum. We've got Love Island. All these shows that men and women really enjoy watching, particularly women with the Love Island, which is quite interesting. Would love for you just to speak into some light on some of how you've seen this actually go downhill for people. It doesn't matter the sex, but just curious, like what have you seen? How have you seen people change around this? And you know, I in some capacity, this is a religious example, but guarding your heart and your mind is quite important, and guarding your eyes really is. So Rav, just speak to that a little bit, if you don't mind, for our generation, since we're a similar age.
Yeah, well, one thing you mentioned fashion, and one thing that I think is really healthy is cross-sex mind reading and just having greater empathy towards the other sex and what they're going through. And when it comes to fashion, one thing that I see a lot is that, and I actually lean, more on the sort of liberal side. I mean, whatever that means these days. But in terms of like being able to express yourself through provocative fashion, I think there's a healthy way in doing it, and women able to dress however they want. But I think women do underestimate impact that dressing provocatively has on men. So frequently I'll have conversations with women who are dressed like extremely provocatively accentuating different body parts, and they'll just be completely ignorant oftentimes at how men feel about that. And men's brains are different than women's brains, so there's just a different experience people have. And so I've talked to even very well-known, famous, brilliant, really decent guys, even in happy marriages, who talk about going out, walking down the street, coffee shop, gym, and just being bombarded with all of this, hypersexual dress. And so I think women should have a bit more empathy and try to understand how much men's biology makes them notice women who dress a certain way. And then the other way around, I think men in general overestimate how much a woman is sexually available or sexually interested based on how she's dressing. And like just talking to so many women, a lot of women say like, "Oh, I'm dressed in this, small crop top and accentuating my breasts, not for male attention, but actually to compete with other women." And it's like, "Oh my God, really?" Like I thought, like some men find that really shocking.
Rav,
like, I thought it was for us. It's like not really.
Yeah, no, I actually appreciate bringing that up, and it kind of sparked a question that Deborah, I would love to end with you, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to elaborate on this, just to finish off. But I'm going to be sort of edgy on this, but women dressing provocatively is a touchy subject, because I don't want to sound like the guy that, like, by no means do I think, women are to blame for men's issues with how they view women. That's not it at all. Is it wrong to say in some capacity men sort of guided this culture in some capacity, almost like monopolizing an industry that just sells sex? Or am I being too mean to men in saying that? And then secondly are women sort of feeling the need to blend in society to please men in this way? Like, I don't mean to just make it so black and white and try and blame one gender. That's not what I'm trying to do, but would love sort of your take on this. You got about 1.5 minutes.
Sure. I would say, I mean, I definitely noticed the same thing for myself in terms of looking around the young women on the street, say, and how they dress. And I'm quite shocked, even as a woman, because I think to myself, I don't think these women realize the messages that they're sending out when they dress that way. They're wearing tiny, tiny little shorts and tiny little crop tops, and, their parts are very visible. And so I think part of it is that they have really internalized this messaging that you as a woman, it's almost like women cannot get away from our value inherently being tied to our sexuality. So you might as well own it and take advantage of that, as opposed to pushing back and saying, we deserve more than that, and we can dress modestly and be taken seriously. But I don't think it's fair to blame men, because women do have their own autonomy. At the same time, I think this messaging, this is not the way to go about doing it, because it's only making it more difficult for the individual. And trust me, I've made plenty of mistakes myself as a young woman, so I'm trying to share the knowledge with this next generation, in that your value should come from things that are important to you, and not something as fleeting as sex appeal.
Bret, I got to give you max here, like 25 seconds. I would love for you just to close off with your thoughts on some of what Debra said.
Got it. I don't think people should be thinking that the alternative is between dressing in a provocative way and a stodgy way. It is possible to dress in a desirable way, a sexy way that does not advertise that you're easy, right? And because
Advertise
you
that
don't draw
you're
this
easy.
distinction, right? And so because men are looking for easy, but they're also looking for partners, you're appealing to the wrong channel when you do that. And women do have a value in the reproductive sense, but it's part of a partnership. And if you dress towards that, yeah, you're not going to get some of the attention from men, but that's not the attention you want.
We want to hear from you, especially if you disagreed or feel we missed something important. Join the conversation at My Generation on all socials. We'll end off with this. Do not simply accept what you are told. Challenge your thinking, engage in differences, and listen to new perspectives.
I'ma rule the world, I'ma rule the world, yeah, yeah. I'ma rule the world, I'ma rule the world, yeah. 해가 지고 뜰 때까지 I'm up, yeah.